Welcome to Orange Weekly, Training Camp Preview Edition. Alongside my colleague Nate Mink, I'm Brent. It is here on this field this week that the Syracuse University football team will start the 2019 season. And Nate, it is one of the most anticipated seasons I can remember Syracuse football having. And we're going to give you a full season preview a little bit later on this month. But for now, we focus in on training camp, the sweaty days of football practice, Nate. And the one thing that you and me and everybody will be keeping an eye on are those key position battles for Syracuse. And there are a couple positions that have a little bit of uncertainty right now.
Position battles, it's sort of an ominous opening, isn't it?
Here it
That's the storyline every camp is who emerges as those first wave of contributors. I think you got to hone in on two positions, Brent. Obviously the offensive line on the offensive side of the ball, and then on the defensive side of the ball, it's the same position group we've been talking about since the spring, linebacker. So to focus in on the offensive line, Syracuse has to replace 3 starting offensive linemen from last year. They returned 3 starting caliber offensive linemen from last year's team, but the key position is offensive tackle. They got to replace Coda Martin and Cody Conway. As we'll get into a little bit later, they're going to bring in a couple of experienced players from other institutions that they hope will maybe contribute right away. And then on the defensive side of the ball, linebacker, you're replacing Ryan Guthrie, you're replacing Kylan Whitner. Shaheen Cullen is not returning this season, so you start fresh and new there as well. Lakeem Williams, Andrew Armstrong, those are your seniors this year. They're going to be asked to carry the torch this year.
You know, the tackle position is certainly important when you have Tommy DeVito taking over a quarterback. And Nate, I feel like we say that a lot about the linebacker position, a few new players coming in, but it seems like all has worked itself out there in the past few years. So those are some things to keep an eye on. And in those positions and more around the field, Nate, some new faces here at Syracuse. Who are some of the players we should be keeping an eye on that we haven't seen yet?
Well, I don't know if it would be totally accurate to call Tommy DeVito a new face as a third-year player, but it's his first year where he is the guy at the quarterback position. And for fans who sort of just follow the program a little bit from afar, not seeing number 2, Eric Dungy, back there behind center is going to be a big change for viewers. Looking at some of the other younger faces, maybe, those are obviously often new faces. You know, there are some key freshmen coming in. Courtney Jackson has been in here since January. I think he's going to be a young player to watch this camp. And then again, linebacker, Jeff Canton, Canadian. He arrived this summer. He's already 6'4", 220. I mean, he comes in with a frame that is going to just get bigger and leaner and faster and stronger, and he's a player I'm going to keep an eye on. And then again, the offensive line, the 2 tackles that I referenced earlier. Graduate transfer Ryan Alexander from South Alabama, and junior college transfer Darius Tisdale. Both of those are offensive tackles. They're going to be asked to come in and compete for starting positions right away. And
a couple names that maybe you saw in the bowl game, running back Abdul Adams and wide receiver Tristan Jackson, now fully part of the football team. They'll be out here practicing as well. Nate, I mentioned the hype that's behind this season. I can't remember so many preseason accolades, Syracuse appearing in all sorts of feature articles, top 25 rankings. People are loving what this program did last year and are curious to see what they do this year. And there's 2 players in particular that have gotten a mountain of preseason accolades, the 2 Andres on this team, Andre Cisco and Andre Schmidt.
Well, oftentimes, Brent, as you know, a lot of preseason recognition or accolades is a reflection on the previous year. And those 2 guys obviously had outstanding seasons in 2018. They were both All-Americans. Andre Cisco led the nation in interceptions with 7. Schmidt won the Groza Award for the nation's top kicker. Young players, very, very young players, so they're going to be here for a while. And the key is, I think, obviously going to be, can they carry that success from last season over this season? It's a high bar that they set last year, so even if they do have maybe a slight dip in production, the key thing is just going to be the consistent week in and week out effort from those 2 guys. And there's other guys, like you mentioned, so many other guys, Alton Robinson, Aaron Service. Tommy DeVito has a chance, I think, by the end of the year to be among the top quarterbacks in the conference. Mo Neal has a chance to be among the top running backs in the conference. I think there's going to be a litany of players up and down this roster. Kendall Coleman, who's, God forbid, always the oft-forgotten guy on that defensive end tandem.
Still pretty good.
Still very good, coming off a 10-sack season. There's so many players on this team that have a chance to really turn in good seasons this year.
You know, it's interesting, Nate, because Andre Cisco, Andre Schmidt are players on the defense and special teams. And when you think of Syracuse football, you always think of the offense, but a lot of the preseason accolades are over on the other side of the ball. It was interesting. I was talking to Dino Babers the other day, and he mentioned how these off-season workouts that these players get into put themselves in tremendous shape for this training camp that begins. That being said, Nate, with a few weeks before that Liberty game, what are the things this team has to accomplish on these fields before kickoff to start the 2019 season? season?
I think, Brent, a huge key to this season is going to be health. You know, I think as you look at their roster from 1 to 38, 42, they can play with anybody in the country. Anybody. We saw that last year at Clemson.
Yep.
They can play with the top of the top. If they get dinged at a couple wrong positions, I think then that ceiling maybe shrinks from 10, 11, 12 wins to 8 or 9, 7, 8, 9, you know, depending on what position and which player gets dinged. So I think they got to just get out of this camp healthy, because I think the talent on this roster, aside from Clemson, is at the top of the league.
One thing I'll be curious to see too is turnover margin. Syracuse went from 12 turnovers created in 2017 to 31 a year ago. Andre Cisco had a lot of those. We'll see if they emphasize that in camp as well. That's our training camp preview for Orange Weekly. We'll be back with a season preview in just a couple of weeks. It's great to be talking football again alongside Nate Mink. I'm Brent Axe.